Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing this makeup look, but the main purpose of this video is to convince myself not to buy the new Patrick Ta eyeshadow palette. He's brought out a new Major Dimension eyeshadow palette, which is rose toned, and it looks really pretty, very appealing to me. I was really on the fence about getting it, but I've taken a closer look at what I have in my collection and decided that I really don't need that palette. So I wanted to create this look kind of inspired by that palette and using some of the things that I already have that I feel have a very similar look and vibe to the Patrick Ta palette. I'm going to show you all the things that I have that remind me of that palette. And I'm also going to be showing you two of the Merit lip oils. I have the shades Falcon and Taupe. I'm going to be lip swatching these and just talking a little bit about this formula as well. So if you'd like to see all of that, just keep on watching. So the palette I actually want to use on my eyes today is a Charlotte Tilbury one. It's the Fire Rose palette, which I know is not available right now. It was limited edition when it came out, but I imagine she'll bring it back someday. But I was just looking through all my makeup the other day and was kind of reminded of this and thought that I wanted to use it. And then I was thinking about the new Patrick Ta Rose palette, and this was the first one that came to mind when I was trying to think about good reasons to convince myself not to get that palette. So I wanted to do a look with this today, but I will show you later on some other palettes and single shadows that are still available that also give me the vibes of that Patrick Ta palette. But I was just really excited to pull this back out. So I think I'm going to start with this one all over the lid. It's kind of like a light rosy pink shade. Going with my classic crease brush. Okay, now that I have that all over the lids, I'm going to take the same shade on just a smaller brush and make sure it gets into the inner part and the inner corner of my eye. And I'm going to, as usual, kind of pull it around the corner and through the inner part of the lower lash line. To finish off the lower lash line, I'm going to take this one, which is more of a kind of bronzy brown. It's kind of like a satin metallic. It's not as shiny, shimmery metallic as this rose gold that I have all over. Going to continue with that bronzy shade on the Wayne Goss 06 brush. It's just a little bit bigger and fluffier of a pencil brush than the number 7 that I was just using. I'm just gonna kind of feather that in the outer part of the lid. And I don't want that to take over from that rose gold shade, so I'm just gonna take a little more of the first shade I used and just pat it and blend it over there. This quad, in my opinion, is definitely the best quad that Charlotte Tilbury's ever done. So I don't know why it was available for such a short time and no longer available. I really hope she brings it back. I'm going to go into this really bright, I think this is a Celestial shade, just on my finger and tap that kind of on the center, kind of blending it around. I feel like it's just such an easy palette to use, and I got this look really with very little work at all. So I think that's it for the shadows, but I do need some liner. Maybe I'll try with this kind of burgundy as a liner, see how that works out. Just taking my angled brush from Sigma Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna go put some mascara on, then I'm gonna come back. I'll do my blush, highlighter, and I wanted to show you a couple of different lip products as well. And then I'm gonna go through some other palettes and eyeshadows that I have that are still available that I think have a very similar feel to what's going on in that new Patrick Ta palette. Eyes are all finished, and let's go in with blush. I'm gonna use the Westman Atelier Doo blush. It's a berryish tone that I think will go really nicely with this eye look. I'm just gonna start tapping a little bit on my cheeks and then using my Sonia G Classic Base, my favorite cream blush brush. I already have a little bit of contour and bronzer on. It's gonna be listed below. Also going to use Westman Atelier for highlight. This is the Lit Up Highlight Stick in Pärla. Again, this is another limited edition item that I don't think is available unless you can find a retailer that's still selling the holiday box from 2021. But again, this is another one I imagine it will become available again in the future at some point. For lips, I wanted to show you two different things. I think this is going to be the color that I choose, but I wanted to show you this one as well. These are the Merit lip oils, and I originally just had the clear shade that has a little bit of gold shimmer running through it, and I enjoyed that a lot, but they more recently sent me these two shades, which have really made me fall in love with this formula. So I'm going to show you the darker one first. This is the shade Falcon. It's a really beautiful, rich brown, cool tone brown in my opinion. So there's just one very thin layer of Falcon, and you can see it's not nearly as intimidating as you might think it is looking at the color in the bottle there, but you can build the color up. And there's two layers of the color. So this is the type of color, because it is quite cool toned, I personally would want to wear a little bit more blush with it, but I'm just gonna leave it like this because this isn't gonna be my final color. I just want you to be able to see how it looks on the lips, and I think if you like a cooler toned brown lip, this is exceptional. The texture is really beautiful with these. They do feel like a lip oil. I find some things that are called lip oils just feel like a regular gloss to me, but these have a very thin, oily feeling, but they don't feel like they're going to move around. I find they actually stay really well within the lip lines, and you can almost use the applicator on these kind of to line the lips. It's small enough and precise enough that you can do that, and as I said, the color doesn't bleed at all beyond where you place it, basically. So I think these are really phenomenal, and the way that the colors wear is really special, and I think that's why I've really fallen in love with this formula now that I have the colored shades, because they do have that sheerness, but there's a richness to them as well, and they just are really flattering on the lips. And the color looks like this beautiful stain. It is a little bit shiny, but not too shiny. It doesn't feel sticky or thick or gloopy at all on the lips. So I'm gonna take Falcon off and put my favorite shade, Taupe, on. So there's Taupe, and to me this is just the perfect rosy nude shade. Super easy to wear, super flattering. It's the type of shade that I love to wear because it has a little bit of brown in it. For me, that's really what I want on an everyday basis, is a kind of rosy nude with a little bit of brown, and slightly warmer tends to be my preference. Although I am enjoying some slightly cooler toned options as well. There are the two shades swatched on my hand, so Falcon and Taupe. I like everything I've tried from Merit, but I think their lips are really exceptional. Their lip products are among the very best in the business. If you saw my video where I used the shade Baby of their new lightweight lipsticks, you'll know how positively I feel about their lipsticks. I've ordered a couple other shades of that as well, so they'll be coming up on my channel too, but those are some of my absolute favorite lipsticks. I think that formula is incredible as well, and the colors are really beautiful too. All right, so moving again to the Patrick Ta eyeshadow palette. That was really the impetus for this video, was to basically convince myself and maybe you that we don't need to buy that Patrick Ta palette, as lovely as it looks. So I mentioned the Charlotte Tilbury Fire Rose, and if you have that, take a look at it and that might help. Another palette that I thought of is the Anastasia Soft Glam palette. Now, I got this back when it came out and got a lot of use out of it. It's a mess, but when I was looking at pictures of the Patrick Ta, doesn't that look similar? I'll put up a picture of the Patrick Ta next to it. I think a lot of those shades are really similar. Now, you're going to find differences in terms of the formulas and the textures. One of the things that does draw me toward the Patrick Ta palette is the texture of those glittery, shimmery shades. I think those look quite special, and from what I've heard from some reviews of the first palette, that is a really nice formula. So you're not necessarily going to find that formula in this palette, but I think that so many of the colors are quite similar. The orange soda shade here looks a lot like the peach. It's really hard to tell from pictures of the Patrick Ta palette online because I've seen different pictures and it looks different in different pictures. In some, it looks extremely warm, which is another reason that I'm holding off on it. I really tend to prefer neutral leaning warm or neutral leaning cool shadows overall. I don't like when they're too warm, and often shades that even don't look exceptionally warm in the pan will go kind of orangey on me. And so that's something that I am hesitant about as well. But I think, yeah, so many of the shimmers, you've got that goldish tone shimmer, you've got a couple of those rosy tones in varying depths, and the mattes as well. I think a lot of them are really similar in this palette. Another one is the Pat McGrath Divine Rose palette, the first one. Now that one I do find rather cool toned. It's a little bit too cool toned actually for my liking overall, but I think that it does have a similar feel to what's going on in this Patrick Ta palette. And maybe even if you were looking at the Patrick Ta and thinking it's a little bit too warm, the Divine Rose might be a better option. Another intriguing aspect about the Patrick Ta palette is the two cream shadows. So it has this little section on one side where two of the shadows are creams, which I think is a brilliant idea. I think creams are a great way to start out an eye look, and even if you wanted to just use them as a really simple one and done. Creams were definitely another intriguing aspect to me, particularly the lighter one. It looks like kind of a light rosy brown. But I have the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Eyes to Mesmerize, which I think has a similar feel. And although this one is technically shimmery, it does have little shimmer particles in it. I think once it's actually blended out on the lid, it can kind of resemble like a satin matte type of feel. And these Charlotte Tilbury shadows work great as a base for a powder eye look as well, or even just these with like a shimmery glitter on top of them is really nice. And getting back to that shimmery glittery formula in the Patrick Ta, I have single shadows that I think can resemble that as well. I think the Victoria Beckham lid lusters are a good example of that. I pulled out Tea Rose and Chiffon here. So both of these have a really beautiful kind of multi-dimensional shine to them, and those tones I think resemble some of the tones in the Patrick Ta palette. I think the shade Honey in the lid lusters could also have a similar feel to kind of the overall color scheme of the Patrick Ta palette. And then another Charlotte Tilbury is the Pillow Talk. These are called the Jewel Pots, and to me this looks very similar to the second lightest shimmery shade in the Patrick Ta palette. This to me is actually quite good at maintaining its true tone, so it has that kind of neutral, maybe leaning a little bit warm, but it has a mauviness to it as well. And I know that this is one that doesn't go orange on me. And if I'm being honest, the most appealing part of the Patrick Ta palette is that single shade actually. I already have a pot of basically the same thing that I'm really happy with. And then I just wanted to mention two liquid shadows as well. This is the Lisa Eldridge Liquid Lurex in the shade Angelica, which again, I feel like if you mix together all the shimmers in the Patrick Ta, you'd probably come up with something that looks a little bit like that. And then the Hindash Boy Tears as well looks quite similar to the last shimmer shade, the kind of champagne-y looking one, and has a really nice shiny, shimmery finish to it as well. So with all of those things that I have, I've really convinced myself that I do not need that Patrick Taupe palette at all. And hopefully that helped you as well if you have some similar things, or it at least inspires you to kind of take a little bit of a closer look at what you already have. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. If you'd like to see more from me and you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I would love for you to do so. Thanks again so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in my next video.